welcome back to another video. So today I think falls in that category of you have to be kidding me. Now, this isn't just because what I'm looking at now is just so blatantly absurd. It follows a couple of recent things that happened. Firstly, I'm not sure if I mentioned it in a previous video, but Lisa had an accident a few weeks ago, and we thought she had broken a leg. So I took her to A&E, to the ER department at the local hospital. And luckily, we were seen fairly quickly to get x-rays. And then we were told to wait. And wait we did. 16 hours sitting in the emergency department. 16 hours. And it wasn't because the waiting room was so packed. A few ambulances did come in, and they're given priority, rightly so. But we soon started to believe there wasn't a doctor in the hospital, and a lack of nurses. I would say that in the waiting room, if there were 40 people, 25 to 30 left after, say, 10, 11, 12 hours, just went home without having been seen. And there was no real indication that they would then be contacted by somebody to check on them. So the question that we asked, and I think a question a lot of people, there was a bit of discussion happening in the waiting room, is where does the money go? Canadians are being crippled under the weight of just growing taxation at all levels, no matter, forgetting just income tax. Everywhere you turn, there's another tax on tax on tax on tax. And billions of dollars in Canada, for anybody in the US or the UK watching, in Canada, the healthcare falls under provincial jurisdiction. So there isn't like a global NHS overseeing the entire country. It's done provincially. But what happens is that when you pay your taxes, the taxes go to the federal government, and the federal government then returns that money in transfer payments back to the provinces for healthcare. You go to any hospital in Canada and they've got the begging bowl out. There's fundraisers. They're having bake sales to buy basic equipment. They have professional fundraisers working at the hospitals, going after corporate donations. They cannot function just with the money they're being given by the federal government in these transfer payments. And remember, we're talking billions and billions of dollars. But 16 hours we waited. And I think if you're waiting 16 hours because there is no doctor, seemingly no doctor to see people, you have to question whether or not we have a healthcare system. But again, so where does this money go? We're paying billions of dollars in taxes. So somebody recently sent me, and this might give us a slight indication of what's happening and of where the money's going. Somebody recently sent me something which just absolutely blew me away. I'm reading off of my other monitor, but I'll put a screenshot here. Canada, through Global Affairs Canada, is giving away hundreds of millions of dollars to fund very questionable international projects. And this one I couldn't believe. The project profile is Greening Our Rice, Gender Just Low Carbon Rice Value Chains in Vietnam. Now, there's something slightly questionable about how a Canadian's going to teach an Asian country how to grow rice. But we're funding these projects that keep pushing Canada's agenda, DEI, woke, gender blender agenda, around the world. They're using these billions of taxpayers' dollars to fund these absurd projects around the world. But it's not just that some of them are absurd projects. We are funding things around the world which are clearly major issues in Canada, and they are not being addressed. So the first one, we're going to be having gender-friendly rice now coming from Vietnam, which I'm very happy about. I've always been very concerned about how gender-happy my rice is. So now with the $8.2 million, hopefully the rice will sort itself out. The next one, beans for women for empowerment. Now, $15.5 million being given to the Democratic Republic of Congo to strengthen the gender equality agency in decision-making and resource rights of women and girls active in the bean sector in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And the main policy objectives here are gender equality, environmental sustainability, climate change adaptation, and nutrition. Now, again, pushing the climate, the environmental, the gender agenda on other countries to the tune of $15 million. Another one, building resilience of vulnerable people in Burkina Faso, $16.6 million. For basic health, basic nutrition, and agricultural development. Again, the policy objectives are, well, the main one, gender equality, environmental sustainability, and climate change adaptation. So pushing, again, the agenda on developing countries, aid recipients, to the tune of $16 million. Another one, building leadership opportunities and options for marginalized women and girls. $20 million for Tanzania, Somalia, and Rwanda. Now, it's not that I'm against contributing to other countries and helping them develop and letting them benefit from the successes that Canada have had so they can realize similar successes. My concern and my objective is, again, this is just another sign of how blind and tone deaf the government is when we're talking about giving $20 million to people in Tanzania, Somalia, and Rwanda for building leadership opportunities and options for marginalized women and girls, when there are countless native marginalized communities in Canada who are not receiving anything near this level of funding or this level of attention. But we have enough to spaff this money away in other countries. Advancing gender equality, resilience, opportunity, and inclusion worldwide facility. $94.5 million for Kenya, America regional, Asia regional, south of the Sahara. The majority of the money, though, is going to Africa, Asia. Gender equality and environmental sustainability, again, $94.5 million. I'll try and speed this up. Another project addressing stunting in the Philippines. Now, for $8.6 million to help address stunting amongst children under the age of 5 by improving local health system governance and service delivery. People are hungry in Canada. Food banks are going without food. They don't have anything left to give. The lineups are increasing. There is not just a cost of living crisis, there's a food crisis. People are going hungry. It should almost be a criminal offense, a crime against humanity, that anywhere in the world, anybody should go hungry. But in Canada, that people are moving here in droves. They want to move to Canada thinking it's the greatest country in the world. People are going hungry here. They're going without meals. Kids are going to schools with empty bellies. But we have $8.6 million to make sure kids in the Philippines can go to school. Let's fix the problems here first. Then we can start fixing problems elsewhere. and $14.8 million for access to health rights, Northern Burkina Faso. Gender equality, good governance, youth issues. Those are the main policy markers, policy objectives. Contributes to the respect of the right to health, including sexual and reproductive rights of women and girls affected by conflict in the northern regions of Burkina Faso. Again, we do not have a healthcare system here, and this is a very sensitive issue for me. So I haven't really discussed it before. We need to fix healthcare in Canada. It's absolutely fucking disgraceful that anybody waits 116 hours in a hospital for treatment. People wait months and months and months for a referral to a specialist, where the majority of people do not have a GP. So I was married before my wife started getting pains, and she suffered through it for a little while, thinking it was back strain for shoveling snow or something. And eventually the pains just progressively got worse. And she went to a local hospital, and where they gave her x-rays. They came back and said she has a very severe case of constipation. They took x-rays and she has a very severe case of constipation. So they gave her X-Lax, sent her on her way with X-Lax, which she dutifully took for a couple of weeks. Nothing happened. There was no improvement. There was no lessening of the pain. Eventually, she said that something's a little bit different here. So she made an appointment. She called to make an appointment with her OBGYN, her obstetrician gynecologist, and then had to wait, I think it was 6 weeks, around 6 weeks for an appointment. At which time, when she did attend the appointment, the clinical exam revealed that she had a tumor. The incompetent x-ray, whatever they are, doctor who's reading the x-rays, unfortunately couldn't tell the difference between constipation and a tumor on the cervix. So she was then referred to a cancer clinic. And again, there was a significant wait for the appointment, quite a lengthy wait for the appointment. By the time she went for the appointment, they did all of the diagnostic testing they had to do, at which time they determined she was stage 4. Her cancer had progressed to stage 4. They then pushed very quickly for a very aggressive course of treatment, radiation and chemotherapy, which she did, and a whole bunch of other experimental drugs. And this was another thing. During her first chemotherapy appointment, before they would actually turn on the drip, they held a clipboard in front of her and said, "We've got this new experimental drug, but you have to sign it before we can turn the switch on." And she's like, "No, you're hitting, obviously going for chemo in the first place is just traumatic enough, without then being forced to undergo medical experimentation." So she declined, and they then proceeded with the chemo. She finished the chemo and the radiation and was sent home, basically sent home, said, "Let us know how you feel." That was it. There was no, "Come and see us next week, next month," whatever. 4 months later, they said, they phoned and said, "You know what, maybe you should come in just for a checkup." She went in for a checkup, and unfortunately, the cancer had just was everywhere. It was absolutely everywhere. And they gave her 10 months, and she held on for 4. Held on for 4 months. And I question, had the healthcare system been better equipped, would we have had a doctor who couldn't tell the difference between constipation and a tumor, a fucking big tumor? Would she have had to have waited weeks and weeks for an appointment with a OBGYN, and then weeks and weeks for an appointment at the cancer clinic. So by the time she first went to the emergency department, and by the time she then saw the cancer clinic, we're talking a good few months had passed. And I'm sure anybody who's gone through or has experience with cancer knows that will know that a lot can happen in a few months. It's not something you're going to dilly-dally about. But the dilly-dally they did. Once they determined that she was essentially palliative and there was no further treatment, then it's all suddenly enough, these little secret rooms opened up, and they were giving meds, painkillers, home visits from nurses. But the care wasn't there. The care wasn't there. But yet we have millions and millions of dollars to fund healthcare initiatives in other countries. We have millions and millions of dollars to fund gender issue projects in other countries, helping marginalized women when, you know what, you don't have to be a sociologist or very tuned into the news to know just the shoddy treatment that the First Nations in Canada receive and historically have received. But yet there's no money, no funding for these projects to deal with those issues. But yet there's money to deal with these issues in other countries. Kids are going hungry. Kids are going hungry. Food banks have nothing to give them. But yet we have money, millions and millions of dollars for nutrition projects in other countries. This is where the money's going. This is where the taxpayers' money is going. As long as Canada can keep pushing its, can I say WEF agenda, its globalist agenda, net zero agenda, around the world, they will favor doing that over taking care of its own people. So, you can see from the screenshots, you can access, and this is just a snapshot of thousands and thousands of such projects. Again, I'm all for building a strong, sustainable, happy, healthy world. But we got to look after ourselves first. If we can't, how are we going to help anybody else? And what concerns me, on another level, they don't care about these people in other countries. It's virtue signaling, extreme, and pushing an agenda that these people most likely don't care about either. Do you think the people in Vietnam care about how gender happy their rice is? Absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. So anyhow, I just wanted to share this. This is where our money is going. This is where the taxpayers' money is going. I hope, and there will be an election, there will be a change, and this will be addressed. I mean, Trump did it in the States. I know that Nigel Farage has a similar Doge initiative where they're looking for this ridiculous spending in the UK. We need it here. Absolutely need it here. Let's fix what's happening in Canada first. Give back to the people that built this country. Then we can start looking after everybody else. Let me know what you think. Should it matter how much Canadians are suffering? Should we still continue funding these projects overseas? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. And for anybody who recently subscribed, thank you very, very much. I've surpassed the 500. Now I'm on to the next big goal, which is 1,000. So if you haven't already, I would really appreciate you subscribing to the channel. Giving this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Leave me a comment below if you have any thoughts, any thoughts on this, any comments, anything you'd like to add. But yeah, I'll leave it there for now. And until the next video, take care of yourselves.